right, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Glad to be here.
So it's Legends of the Ring tonight. You're hosting this. You're emceeing this.
I'm emceeing it along with Jimmy Hart, Mouth of the South. I'm going to be up on stage. I'll be asking a lot of the questions of both Hulk and Rick, and Jimmy will be out in the audience talking to the fans. So we'll tag team them.
So it's Hogan and Flair here tonight. And when you do events like these, what's the biggest question that those guys get asked?
Well, tonight's a little bit different. We're going to obviously take questions from the fans towards the end of the night, but I'm going to do my best based on how long I've known both of them and what I know of their lives, to ask questions that the audience hasn't really heard before, or to get a look into their lives and their careers and their perspectives on the business that perhaps hasn't been discussed before. So it's a little different than just a Q&A.
So give us a little insight on Ric Flair that most fans might not know.
Well, I don't know that I have any insight as to Ric Flair, but like many of the fans are going to be there tonight, I have questions about his career. Like one of the things I'm looking forward to asking him is, he's a legend now, along with Hulk Hogan, and that's why we're all going to be here tonight. But, I want to know, who did Ric Flair look up to as a legend when Rick was beginning his career? At what point in Rick's career or Hulk's career did they feel like, wow, this may not be the right thing for me, or maybe it is the right thing for me? How do they feel about those points in their careers when they had doubts, like we all do in our careers? Yeah. There's got to be that moment when you go, oh, I don't know, should I be doing this? Yeah. So I want to get into those types of personal questions and perspectives.
Can I ask you that question? When was that moment for you when you're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this?
About halfway through 1997.
And then you're like, I don't know where it goes from here.
No, I'm just kidding. I once I took the job, at WCW, and actually prior to that, once I started working for Vern Gagne, I knew that I loved the business. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to experience more. So there was really at no point did I doubt whether I should be doing it or not. There was a point, in my career, towards the end especially, when I just felt like the way things were going, I wasn't too sure I wanted to do it anymore, but it wasn't because of my lack of confidence.
I've been listening to your podcast, 83 Weeks, and I want to say congratulations for the great success you guys have had. The amount of knowledge that you guys put out in those couple hours every week is unbelievable.
Well, I've been in the business for 30 years, and Conrad's been a fan for probably 25 years, and he does his research. I kind of love him / hate him for it. If you listen to the show, you know what I mean. Because he holds my feet to the fire. I mean, he doesn't let me slide, and I appreciate that. It doesn't sound like I do, but I do, because it's entertaining, right?
He'll ask you about specific dates. He'll be like, August 21st, 1997, and you remember most of this, which is actually impressive.
Most of it, but not all of it. And the fans, it's funny because, the people that follow me on social media, of course, they bust my chops. The minute I say I don't recall, it's like, oh, I'm going to get blistered on the internet, because he'll ask me one question that I don't remember the answer to, and I don't bluff my way through it.
Yeah.
If I don't know, I'll just say, look, I don't know, I don't remember. I don't make stuff up like a lot of people do, but man, do I hear from, the fans when that happens. So I try.
How involved are you in the world of wrestling now?
I'm not at all. I mean, I'm on the outside looking in, like all the fans are. I feel like I had a good run. I got to do some amazing things and work with some amazing people, and I'm really grateful for that. But I'm just like everybody else now. I'm on the outside looking in.
As a fan, are you watching like the rest of us? Are you watching Raw and Smackdown every week?
No. Ain't gonna lie. No BS here. No, I don't. I drop in if there's something going on that I'm particularly interested in, or if, a character that I like following, or a friend of mine is involved in something that's kind of high profile. I'll drop in, I'll check it out. I'll make sure I catch it on, a replay somewhere, somehow. I stay alive on top of things in social media. But I can't sit. I can't sit and watch anything for 3 hours, or 2 hours.
But you were the one that made Nitro 3 hours.
Well, I didn't want to. I was forced to. It wasn't my idea.
Who in the world of wrestling do you still keep in touch with on a regular basis?
Hulk Hogan, still my best friend to this day. I stay in touch with DDP occasionally. I'm a horrible phone friend. Anybody that knows me, even my family, my brother and sister, who I love dearly, I probably only talk to on the phone once or twice a year. But I stay in touch with text messages, kind of impersonal, but whatever. But I stay in touch with Hulk, DDP. Wow, I guess that's it. But I'm friends. When I go to LA, I'll call Steve Austin and we'll go out and we'll have a beer and a burger or something. And, I stay in touch with people and I have good relationships with certain people. But I just, Ernest the Cat Miller is another guy that I really dig. Sonny Ono, are still friends of mine. So there are people I stay in touch with, but not many.
Is it hard for you as a fan to watch the product and just appreciate what's going on rather than going, I would have booked this a little bit differently?
I never analyze it from a creative point of view. I never try to be an armchair quarterback when it comes to creative because, I was on the other end of that. I know what that's like. But what I've learned, having done it, is that if you're not behind the scenes, if you don't know all of the variables, like if I was writing for you and you were a performer in WWE, if I don't know what your strengths are, if I don't know what your weaknesses are, if I don't know where you're at mentally and emotionally, it's too hard as an observer, as a fan, to say, well, this is exactly what I would be doing with this guy, because you don't know. You only know the tip of the iceberg.
Sure.
Some people are not ready emotionally or from a confidence perspective, or they don't have enough depth and range in their character quite yet to give them that push that the audience may feel like they deserve. But if you can't look under the hood and see how all the pieces are working together, you don't know for sure. So I stay away from that.
With that said, do you think a guy like Roman Reigns is over? Like he's getting a reaction. He's not getting the reaction they're hoping for. But do you think he's over?
Over is a subjective term. It means different things to different people. Clearly, he's high profile, if that's what over means to some people. Is he a fan favorite, if that's what you mean by over? No. Is he got the right kind of heat that is constructive, that can be used in order to advance a storyline? Questionable. But I don't think that that's Roman's fault. I think the way he's been packaged and the way he's been presented, and to a degree, dare I say, because I don't like to be critical, but he has been, there's no other way to say it, he's been forced down everybody's throat for 2 years. But you, no matter how good you are, I don't care if you're Vince McMahon, if you're Steven Spielberg, if you're William frickin' Shakespeare, it doesn't matter. The audience is only going to go so far, and you can only force that fish to swim upstream until it just gets tired and has to go the other way.
Would a heel turn help him? Because he does have that momentum.
Yeah, I wish they would turn him heel. I wish they would embrace that. The one thing that I do, and this is going to sound critical because I guess it is, but I really hate when I hear people say, we're going to let the fans decide. That's like the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. Is this YouTube or what?
You can say whatever you want.
I can say shit
YouTube,
here? Okay. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. But, can you imagine if you were writing a movie, right, or directing a movie, and you went to the movie studio and you said, look, see, I got this script, and we're gonna cast, the greatest actor that we can afford, but I'm not really sure if I want him to be a good guy or a bad guy. We're going to let the audience decide. I mean, that'd be the last movie you ever wrote or directed. And that's kind of what they're doing with Roman. And I just don't buy that, we're going to let the audience decide stuff. I don't believe the talent really believes it. I think it's a way to kind of cover up the fact that the creative, that's being provided to that talent is probably less than up to par. But whatever. I think if it was me, I'd make him a heel. If he can't talk, I'd find somebody to talk for him. Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar.
Perfect.
Brock, when he starts talking, immediately the illusion vanishes. You're just like, wow. Yeah. But find him a good manager. Find him a heel character manager that can speak for him. Put him in the right position so that a babyface can benefit from all that heat. Because the fans will buy that. Yeah. That would be a great story. But for whatever reason, they keep kicking that fish upstream.
Although I guess that there's the idea that if they turned him heel, then people might start cheering him.
Well, that's because they put themselves in that position. They box themselves into that corner by trying to force the audience to buy something they don't want. They did it to themselves, meaning the WWE creative. And yes, you, Vince McMahon, did it to yourselves by trying to force something that the audience didn't want.
Yeah. With all this said, you clearly have so much knowledge about the business.
I don't have knowledge, brother. I have an opinion. There's two different things.
I think you have knowledge and an opinion.
All right, I'll go with that.
When will we see you inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
Probably never.
Oh, come on.
No, I don't see it.
Really?
No, I don't see it.
how could you not be? You're such, Raw is what it is because of Nitro being what it was.
Everybody's got opinions about that. I have my own. But whatever. I don't think about it. People, ask me about it in interviews, and I have to respond to it. But it's just not something I think about, and I personally don't ever see it happening.
There is a moment in WWE, a very specific moment that I don't know if people have asked you about that I'd like to ask you about. And if it happened today, it would be so incredibly controversial, and you were part of it. It's Vince McMahon saying the N-word to John Cena. You're part of that. You weren't on camera at that moment, but when he said that, what was your reaction?
It was a different time, culturally, politically, everything was different back then. In the context in which that scene was written and executed, it was a little sensitive at that time. Now it would be nuclear.
Oh, yeah.
It's toxic at this point. But again, it's different culture, different time, and I think people need to be careful when they start looking at things like that. Just put it in the context, and particularly put it in the context of the time frame that it occurred. We weren't nearly as sensitive then as we are now, and it was almost a parody of itself. And when you start doing parody and when you start doing comedy, it's treacherous because you can step over the line, as we've seen recently. But especially back then, it was just a lot more latitude.
Was that scripted?
Well, I wasn't part of it, so I don't know. But if I would guess it probably was.
It must have been, because Booker T was then in that segment. Tell me you didn't just say that.
Most everything in WWE is scripted, so I would have a hard time accepting anybody's explanation that particular scene wasn't.
What is your take on SmackDown moving to Fox?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do an entire 1-hour show on that, in my opinion. Number one, I think it's awesome. Network television, it's the holy grail. Number one. Number two, Friday nights.
It's not a good TV night.
Yeah. They're going after that younger demo, which is, I think, probably why Fox, was excited about getting that SmackDown brand. However, I still remember when I was 20, 25, 28, even younger than that. Friday nights was the night I was out trying to get laid. I was doing stuff on Friday night. I was out with my friends. I was, whatever, I wasn't sitting at home watching television. And I don't think anything's changed. Now maybe because most people are getting their entertainment off their laptops and computers, and maybe people are spending more time at home now than they used to, but I don't see that, man. The other thing that I'm curious about with regard to that is you've got Raw, which is still the flagship show, in the opinion of many, which is over on USA Network, which is owned by NBC Universal. And now you've got SmackDown, which is on network television, owned by Fox Network. Yeah. They're competitive networks. Yeah. Now, what's going to happen when the WWE, which traditionally has been able to, cross-pollinate talent and do all kinds of cute little things creatively. Now what's going to happen when WWE is going to want to say, no, we're going to take this guy that's really getting over here on Fox, and we're going to put him over here on Raw for a night. I think some Fox executives are going to go, whoa.
Yeah.
I could give you a billion reasons over the next 5 years why we don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that I think politically is going to be an interesting manifestation of those choices.
And if SmackDown ends up being in more households than Raw, does SmackDown now become the A show?
I don't, look, Raw is always going to be, I say always, for a long time, Raw is going to be perceived to be the A show because it has been for so long. Yeah. And while you may get a couple million more homes, perhaps, as a result of being on a Fox network versus USA Cable, it won't really matter when it comes to perception from the fans. So I don't think so. But I really, and here's the other thing, having been there in a way, once network executives start going, hey, why are you doing that on this show, but you're doing this on that show? Why aren't you doing what you're doing over here? Once the network executives, because they all kind of hide in their offices, they cover their ass. They don't want to create too much of an issue until things start going a little south. Yeah. Once the ratings start getting a little soft or there's any kind of a downturn, then all of a sudden they're going to get brave. They're going to come out of their offices and everybody's going to have an opinion. That's when it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen.
I think what's going to be really interesting is live television is it doesn't happen very often other than like sporting events and now Raw or wrestling in general. How big is the deal going to be after this deal expires, do you think?
Oh, man, I can't look forward to this. I mean, I may not even be around when that happens. How old is this? 5 years. I'll be almost 70 years old. I don't look that far ahead, brother.
You look great for your age, by the way.
Thank you. You should see my liver.
What's your take on everyone using Too Sweet now, which was obviously an NWO thing?
It was an NWO thing, and I think it probably had its actual beginnings with the Clique, perhaps in WWE, but it was never part of content. It was never part of programming. That was made popular on Nitro. But I think it's another attempt, not an attempt, it's another effort by WWE to kind of own that, because everything that was associated with NWO probably still in the darkest, deepest recesses of their collective egos and minds, they still can't stand the fact that the NWO is the hottest thing that's happened in professional wrestling in the last 20 freaking years, and anything that reminds them of that kind of makes them go boom.
Think we'll ever see you back as like a GM or something like that?
No, I think that ship has sailed, brother.
Really? I just feel like if we heard your music, there'd be a massive pop for that.
And there might be for a night or two, but I've kind of been there and I've done that. With a character like a general manager, there's only so much you can do creatively. I don't wrestle. Clearly now, I'm especially not going to wrestle. And with a kind of an authority figure character, there's only about a dozen things you can do. And then you spend your time trying to redo the same dozen things 15 or 20 different ways so they don't look like the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think the audience, we saw it at Raw 25 when I came out, got a great reaction, and I appreciate it very much. It means a lot to me, but by about the third or fourth time that music played, people go, oh, God, it's him again.
He's back again.
He's back.
I'm back.
And he's older than ever. Oh, for God's sake.
Well, we started the interview asking what the questions that Flair and Hogan often get asked. What's the question when people see you that you get asked more than anything?
Oh, whose idea was it really for the NWO? How hard was it to get Hulk Hogan to turn into a bad guy? How great of a kisser was Miss Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question.
That's a good question. She was great.
There's the answer. Eric, such a pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure.
And 83 weeks, just keep killing it with that.
Thank you, buddy.
All right,
appreciate it.
Just sitting in traffic on the way back from that interview. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed just sitting there and taking it all in, listening to it. Although I wasn't sitting, I was standing, but you get the point. What he said about Roman Reigns turning him heel is bang on. Maybe they should finally do this, right? Because he is being shoved down our throats. Sorry, Vince, if you're watching this. You think Vince is watching? Probably not. Also, what he said about SmackDown being on Fox is very interesting. Since SmackDown will now be a Fox property and Raw will be an NBC Universal property, they won't really want to share talent. So this is going to be like a true brand split. Also, I know he said he wasn't going to be in the Hall of Fame, but I think we're all going to see Bischoff in the Hall of Fame one day, right? So I've got these interviews down here. Check them out. Please subscribe. And in the words of the NWO, it's too sweet.